Hello. I am back from tango. It is still Wednesday. Tuesday. It is still Tuesday, October, I think, 24th. Can I just say, I am so grateful to the gods and goddesses of anything, everything, for the fact that tango went better today. That was making me so sad that it was just really not going well. And I will admit that at the beginning of today's class, I also was like, I don't know, it's maybe literally I didn't want to go. I was making myself go. I was whatever. But now that today has gone at least a tiny bit better, not super, super, super great, but I guess significantly better in that I feel better about it. And now that I feel somewhat better about it, I see everything a bit clearer. And so here are the lessons that I'm learning right now. So, first is when I go on autopilot, I am not thinking about how I'm stepping. And my technique is not ingrained enough in me yet that I can execute the technique without thinking. This is one of the things that I did love about tango when I first tried it, is that it takes an awareness of your body. I can't actually be in my mind when I'm dancing, not as a follower, definitely not as a leader, but still also definitely not as a follower. I can't be in my mind. I have to be in my body to be doing it more or less correctly, to have my posture, to know how much I'm leaning front, where my axis is in regards to the leader, in regards to the floor, where my weight is, the whole process of always being aware that I'm dragging my foot on the floor and that I'm passing both feet before I step, whether forwards, whether back, always collecting, and this certain, yes, you bend your knee, but you have to also straighten it at the end, which is something that I sometimes forget, because I kind of tend to have it bent, but also the whole dissociation, with your side, with your hips thing, that when you do the ochos, you're not stepping, you're not supposed to be stepping, you're dissociating with your waist, and I knew that. I've done that many times, and when I'm thinking about it, I am quite good at it because I do understand most of these things. But the thing is, when I'm really not thinking about it, it all flies out the window, and it's genuinely really I'm not good. And so there was one moment, well, actually, backtrack. It is still very much the case that the technique is different here than in the school that I learned tango from in New York, where I spent most of my time learning tango, both as for a leader and for a follower. And so I feel very, very lost sometimes in the class, and I feel bad about how not good I am because of the fact that at my school, where I knew the technique that I was being taught there, I was pretty good. I wasn't the best. I still had a lot to go, but within the technique that I had learned there with other people who had learned the same technique, I was genuinely doing really well. And here, because the technique is entirely different, it's I've gone from my level of tango hasn't changed. The fact that I was in an intermediate class at my old school and the fact that I'm in an intermediate class at my new school, that has not changed. However, my feeling of how competent I am and my feeling in being happy with myself even has changed, because I'm not good here. Even though I know the same amount of things, I'm not good with this specific technique, even though it's still tango. And that bothers me. It really does. And I guess this is part of the learning process, right? Whenever you switch, you just have to get used to a new thing, which I know that for moving countries, right? But when I felt like I was quite good at something and it made me happy to keep learning it, because even though I knew I wasn't there, I knew I was doing well, to go to feeling like I'm genuinely not good at this and that I more or less have to start over when I could have just kept going from a place where I was good, it does hurt to an extent. But then I'm remembering how when I first started, I know that I mentioned this before, but it sort of sits with me better now in this moment. The fact that when I started tango in New York, it also didn't feel great. There were a good amount of times where I really struggled to get there, where I struggled to be there, where I struggled to get back home. And the thing is, every single time that I struggled in New York when I was starting tango, somehow I still showed up most of the time, or at least I still showed up the next time. I never stopped going, which is the most interesting thing, because I find it to be the case that if a few things happen and you don't really persevere through them, then that thing is not for you. But if a few things happen and you persevere once and you persevere twice and again, that thing is for you. I was starting to think maybe I have to take a pause on tango, or I don't remember how good this feels, or maybe this just isn't right for me. Maybe it was just working in that moment, but overall maybe it's not right for me. And I don't think that's true. I think it's just the case that I am a newbie, and I don't really like that after being a good intermediate dancer. And yes, I did not like how the men were being pushy, but today they were less pushy. But also today, finally, the woman who dances both roles, leader and follower, was in class, and I was in class. My first two classes, she was not there. This time she was there. I danced with her as a follower, and oh my gosh, I feel safe. I feel so much safer with a woman leading than with a man. And of course, it's going to differ. It's going to depend on the woman and on the man, because when the male teacher leads me, I do enjoy it because he leads gently. There's no pushing, I do enjoy it. However, the majority of men, and I don't know if it's just because there are more male leaders than female leaders, but the majority of men, I don't enjoy dancing with that much. It seems to be that I prefer to dance with women over men. And most of the time that ends up being that I have to be the leader, which I will admit, when the technique changes, it's much harder for me to catch up in the leader role than it is in the follower role, because with the follower role, my entire the entire thing of being a follower is more or less that you have to listen. The signals will be different from every single leader, even if they're learning the same technique. When the technique is different, that makes it even harder, but after a dance or two, eventually you get used to like what they're asking you. You know what they're asking you. And so it's easier for me to adapt to different technique as a follower. And so in this class, I was dancing mostly the follower role. But this woman who dances both the leader and the follower, I told her, like, yeah, I am learning both. I tried to do something with the leader and it wasn't working so well. And I felt bad because I think I made the lady who was dancing with me just a little bit mad because I wasn't doing it well. Because I will admit, it feels like upside down land. Because, like, number one, the arm, the side with which you lead is different. Like, the embrace, the side of the body that's open versus closed is different. But then also, like, the way you cross as a leader when you're leading the follower to do a cross is also fucking reversed than what I learned. And, like, it's not bad, right? It's not bad. It is different. But, like, even though it's not bad, the amount of effort it takes for my mind to be like, do the opposite, the literal opposite of what you were told to do, is like the cranks are cranking in my head. I'm like, I really need to like be thinking about it, and it's hard AF. But the most wonderful thing that happened is that I was explaining to this lady who dances both leader and the follower. Number one, I'm learning Spanish. Number two is that the technique that I had learned at my old school was different. I was trying to tell her that. I'm like, I might need to relearn both roles. And you know what she said? She said, I'll help you. Ugh. Do you know how much better I feel? Do you know how much less annoyed I am at myself for not being able to do this right? Like, I think I was so sad that I couldn't do it right. Like, I feel it, because I knew part of it was on me, but also it wasn't. It's not my fault that I learned different techniques, you know, and that doesn't make me like worse of a dancer, but it makes it look like I'm not good to like everyone, and that didn't feel good to me. And for her, it wasn't like, oh, you need to like be better. It was like, I'll help you. And yeah. So I think one of the biggest lessons is like, you never really know what someone knows and doesn't know. And sometimes they're really good at learning and willing to learn, but they just have learned something different in the past. And sometimes the best thing are just those words, I'll help you. Like, not seeing them as, oh, you don't know what you're doing, right? But just, I'll help you figure out how to do it this way. And you know, I feel like going to tango class in Spanish, I kind of understand my students better. Because in tango, everyone's speaking Spanish. The instructor is speaking Spanish. The person talking to me, sometimes telling me something that they did wrong, sometimes telling me to do something differently, I don't always understand the words. This is not the extent of the vocabulary that I know in Spanish. This is not the setting that I learned vocabulary for. And, like, I don't know how to fuck you say hip in Spanish. Yeah, I know head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Cabeza, hombros, rodillas, piernas, like feet. Like, I know that, but like, hip? That's not in the song. You know? Ugh, and the best way that I end up understanding usually is just by watching the physical movement. So people can be saying words paired with the physical movement, and if I end up doing what they wanted me to do, 90% of the time it's because I was watching the moves that they did and trying to pay attention to like their hand motions more than the actual words, because I don't know the words. And so I'm gonna guess most of the time this is how the students feel with me, because they don't understand what I'm saying, but they're looking at my hand signals and at my body movements to understand what I want them to do. So let me just be kind to myself, because I'm learning a lot. All in this one class, I have to be aware of my physical body, but now I have to have my brain on to both the language and super attentive to the movements that the instructor is showing, because I don't understand all of the language. You know, so let me just be kind, and let me just say that, like, I want to point out that this was another time where, even though I didn't feel like it, even though I was thinking like, oh my god, maybe this is over, I still went, and I had a better time, better enough that I want to go again, that I think I will be okay if I go again. So, the beginning is very hard of everything. And in the moments when you're thinking like, this sucks and this doesn't feel good and I don't know how I'm going to do this, in those moments, like, you don't want to keep going. You just want to do something that you kind of already know at least a little bit, because you've spent so much effort onto the things that you kind of already know already, and you don't feel stupid doing it. And you know the thing, it's like that thing kind of about mistakes, you know? In the beginning, you're going to make a whole lot of them. And if you're not comfortable making mistakes, it's really hard to do new things and learn and get better. I feel like there's some things where it's easier for me to make mistakes and not get upset. And usually that's with things like, maybe I'm learning by myself, like the ukulele. When I was learning in Costa Rica, I'd make mistakes, but no one was there. If I'm painting or drawing or singing, no one's usually there. So I'm like, yeah, I don't care about making mistakes. But I guess I do when it comes with other people, or when it's something that I think I should know. If it's something I've never tried before and I'm making a mistake, I feel like I would be less annoyed. But the fact that I have been more or less learning tango for an entire year at this point and making such mistakes, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh my gosh. The beginning is hard. But Janet, you went again despite not wanting to go, and it felt better. And, you know, I do feel you not really having a voice. I feel you scared to step into the group with the leaders when the teacher is showing the leader part. We'll get there. We'll get to the point where you don't have to be so scared. And I think the fact that this woman is here now and that she knows that you dance both roles and that she said she'll help you, I think now you're going to feel better. You don't have to be afraid. I know you were afraid because you were an even worse leader than a follower with the fact that the technique was changed. But do keep in mind you are in class to learn. And I love being a follower. Let's reverse that. And I love being a leader when I feel I can do it. It's like instead of sinking into the fear and like giving yourself up to the universe, like surrendering to like someone else choosing the path. You're choosing the path. And there are times when energetically I'm not up for that. Like right now, I am in surrender, relax mode, and I will admit I was not really up to being a leader. But when I felt a bit more groundedness in the follower part, and when I stepped into the activeness of the follower role again, then it felt better to start thinking about doing the leader one again. And so I really do believe that, Janet, it's just another one of those moments in tango that you kinda had to persevere through. And there might be more, but the amount of things that you have genuinely persevered through to continue dancing tango is more than a lot of things in your life. Like, there will still be moments when you have no idea if you want to do this, and that's okay. And sometimes those will last a while, to the point where you'll think, one more time that this doesn't go well and I can't do it anymore. But I feel like the second that moment comes, that's the one time that will show you you can. It's better, and you can do it, and you want to do it again. So, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to the gods and the goddesses that today went better. Seriously, the amount of things I persevered through to continue doing tango, my anxiety of taking the train to Manhattan for an hour twice a fucking week, or 3, physically being in contact with strangers, like, I think honestly that is kind of the scariest part still. I think the fact that in the beginning the people really feel like strangers, I think that's where a good amount of the fear and uncomfortability comes from, because when you start to get to know them, when you start saying hi, like when you arrive to class, when you start talking like, how was your week, it feels better because they're not so much strangers anymore. There's more trust, there's more safety. I mean, with some people you can feel it energetically. With other people, like, it's the signal through the talking or through the hello that, like, I'm glad you're here type of thing, that just makes me feel better and safer. And I guess at the beginning is just always the hardest. And maybe keeping that in mind, let's think about it not just from tango, but like in the where I am sort of thing, of like the beginning is always the hardest. This is the beginning of an entire new chapter of my life, of where I might not be going back to the US. This is the beginning of my entire new life, after having graduated college and moved to a different country. I can be kind to myself. It's okay that the routine feels a little messed up. It's okay that I come back from work and just lay around, eat snacks, and scroll through videos on Instagram. It doesn't feel great. But I didn't always have the energy to do something different. Which means I am kind to myself, and I am not upset at myself for that. Because it is the beginning of something huge. It's okay if it doesn't feel like bliss. It's okay that it's been 2 months, more or less, and it still feels new and things still feel uncomfortable sometimes. And the fact that, I recognize that this was a thing in Denmark and it's a thing here now, but you understand that you are responsible for all the adult stuff. I am responsible for all the adult stuff. For the grocery shopping, for the cooking, for the cleaning, for the laundry, for the getting myself to and from work, for the, watching my credit cards and, filling up my phone plan and filling up my Metro card. And like, if I made a reservation and I don't want to go, to cancel it or not. Like, it is a lot. Even the regular simple things are a lot. So I'm not going to ask myself to do more. I'm going to ask myself to do the minimum that I need to take care of myself, which is a lot. And it's important. It needs to be stable before I can start doing things like maybe taking a day trip or a weekend trip somewhere, like a lot of people do, and I'm really happy for them. But I am trying to build a healthy, stable life for myself. And so the first thing is that it's okay if I need to set a good amount of time from my life to just do the basics. Shower when I shower, when times I wash my hair, like, plus everything else that I had said, At the end, having become an active follower and considering like the leader thing again, I feel more power in me. And so, while not bliss, this time that I went to tango really helped me because I feel better right now. I was not feeling well lately. Not at all. To be fair, it's eclipse season. And to be fair, some of the things that were hard, I felt really, really heavy and then kind of got over them pretty quickly. But then it still felt wacky and I don't know. But I feel more power in myself now to make minor or bigger changes to find what works best, because it is trial and error. It's still a lot of, I'm buying something, I don't know if I like it yet. I will find out. Yes, there are some things that I have now like labeled as, I know I like this. But if I stop getting anything new, if I stick with that, I feel like that's not enough variety, which means I still am in this whole big trial and error sort of game, even with food, like wanting to try something, but then kind of wanting to wait for the weekend to try something new in case my stomach hurts, so then I don't have to worry about going to school with it. I can just lay at home in bed. So yeah. I think I have said what I wanted to say for today. Hopefully we'll keep talking. I will admit though, I feel like I'm talking to someone in this particular video rather than just to myself, because I was like, I'm here to talk about what I'm learning, not just like randomly spilling my thoughts, like almost wanting it to be like more concise, more structured, wanting there to be like a point. That's nice. I don't think I actually achieved a super concise point, and I don't think I achieved not repeating myself. But you know what? Fuck it. So, I'm gonna go shower and sleep. I love you. Good night. Sweet dreams.